The spiritual fruits of silence. A journey to inner stillness. Saint Isaac the Syrian's reflection on silence is a profound invitation to explore one of the most vital, yet often neglected, disciplines in the spiritual life. Silence is not merely the absence of speech but a transformative encounter with the divine. It is a pathway to inner stillness, a state where one can truly hear the voice of God. This teaching resonates deeply with Catholic spirituality, offering lessons for both contemplatives and active individuals. 1. The primacy of silence in spiritual growth. Love silence above all things, Saint Isaac advises, because silence nurtures fruits that words cannot express. In Catholic tradition, silence is often associated with the presence of God. Consider 1 Kings 19:12, where Elijah encounters God not in the wind, earthquake, or fire, but in a gentle whisper, or still small voice. This narrative illustrates that silence is the environment in which the divine can be most profoundly perceived. Why silence is crucial. Fosters communion with God. Silence creates a sacred space where the noise of the world fades, allowing us to focus on God. Purifies the soul. By turning inward, we confront distractions, attachments, and sins that hinder spiritual growth. Opens the heart to grace. In silence, we become more receptive to God's transformative presence, which works subtly yet powerfully within us. Example. The Blessed Virgin Mary is a model of silence. In moments of profound mystery, such as the Annunciation, cf. Luke 1:26-38, and the Crucifixion, cf. John 19:25-27, Mary does not speak much but treasures all these things and ponders them in her heart, cf. Luke 2:19. 2. Silence is discipline and sweetness. Saint Isaac emphasizes that silence begins as a discipline, requiring effort and self-restraint. Arsenius, the Desert Father, initially forced himself into silence, but over time, he discovered the sweetness born in the heart that leads to inner stillness. This process mirrors the Catholic understanding of asceticism, spiritual practices that discipline the body and mind to cultivate virtue and intimacy with God. The journey from discipline to delight. Initial struggle. Silence is unnatural for many in a world that values constant communication. It requires effort to resist the urge to speak or engage in unnecessary distractions. Growth in grace. Through perseverance, silence transitions from a struggle to a source of joy and spiritual nourishment. Union with God. The ultimate fruit of silence is a deeper union with God, where words become superfluous, and the soul rests in divine presence. Practical steps for embracing silence. Begin with daily moments of silence. Set aside time for quiet prayer or reflection. Practice mindfulness in speech. Speak only when necessary and with intention. Create a sacred space. Dedicate a physical or mental space free from distractions. 3. Inner silence, the true goal. Saint Isaac writes, silence is also a way to stillness. Silence of the tongue is only the first step. The deeper goal is inner silence, where the soul is free from turmoil, distractions, and the clamor of thoughts. This aligns with the Catholic concept of recollection, where the heart and mind are gathered in God's presence. Characteristics of inner silence. Detachment, freeing oneself from worldly concerns and attachments. Peace, a profound sense of calm that flows from trust in God. Clarity, the ability to discern God's will amidst life's complexities. Example. Saint John of the Cross teaches in his poem, The Spiritual Canticle, that silence and stillness are necessary for the soul to encounter the Beloved. The soul must empty itself of noise to be filled with divine love. 4. Silence in community, Arsenius and the Brethren. The example of Arsenius demonstrates how silence can also be practiced in community. Though surrounded by monks, he maintained unbroken silence, often communicating more through his presence than through words. This challenges modern assumptions that relationships require constant verbal affirmation. The power of silent presence. Communicates peace. A silent presence often conveys more peace and strength than words can. Encourages reflection. Silence invites others to ponder deeply rather than respond quickly. Fosters unity in God. When rooted in prayer, silence unites individuals in the shared experience of God's presence. Application. Families and communities can practice shared silence during prayer or reflection. In moments of conflict, choosing silence over reactive words can thus escalate tension and create space for God's grace to work. 5. Challenges and grace in silence. Saint Isaac acknowledges that silence is not always voluntary or easy, especially in environments filled with distractions or responsibilities. Yet, God's grace makes it possible. As Arsenius learned, silence becomes a way of life, even amidst external noise. Overcoming challenges. External noise, use brief, intentional retreats or quiet moments to counteract the busyness of life. Internal restlessness, combat wandering thoughts. Through practices like the Jesus Prayer or meditative reading of Scripture. Resistance from others, when others misunderstand or challenge your practice of silence, remain humble and steadfast, recognizing that your silence is ultimately for God. Conclusion. The light born of silence. Saint Isaac's teaching reminds us that silence is not an end in itself but a pathway to inner transformation and divine communion. The fruits of silence, stillness, sweetness, and spiritual insight are gifts that cannot be achieved through words or actions alone. In a noisy and distracted world, the discipline of silence invites us to rediscover our true selves in God. Let us heed Saint Isaac's call to love silence above all things, trusting that from it, God will grant us light and wisdom beyond what we can imagine. As Psalm 46:10 reminds us, "Be still and know that I am God." May we cultivate the stillness in our hearts and lives, bearing witness to the profound power of silence in drawing us closer to the divine.